Hey YouTube, Dark Magician of Team Sorcerers here, and welcome back to What If Wednesday. And this one, it's another Yu-Gi-Oh! GX one, because I feel like there's hardly any What Ifs for Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. And this one is about one of my top 10 favourite duels from Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. The second one between Jaden and Aster, the one where Aster wins. But this brings us to the question for today. What if Jaden won that duel? Would anything have changed? Well, there is potentially one way, and that was something that TGS Anime went over, and that is, instead of Thunder Giant, he could have made Shining Flare Wingman again. So yeah, I do agree that that was the better option, and that by making Thunder Giant, Jaden sealed his fate. Although, then again, it does require the power of hindsight, knowing what Dreadmaster does, but even so, there was just no reason to go into Thunder Giant, especially since Aster was on, 600 life points, if I remember correctly, and Shining Flare Wingman would have had an attack strength of 4,000, as I believe the Elementary in the graveyard at that point would have been Avian, Burstinatrix, Bobbleman, Tempest, Wild Heart, and Necroshade. Oh wait, that's 6, so he would have been on 4,300. And that's more than enough to take him out, basically. I mean, sure, the effect would have still been revealed, but even so, Jaden would have simply had a monster that Dreadmaster can't get over. And then, of course, Necroid Shaman would have switched to defense, and Jaden would have ended his turn. And then, of course, Aster would have had to use Doom Lord to banish it for 2 turns. And then, who knows how things would have gone. One little mistake I did notice when he did that video was Jaden about to defeat Aster, was that he said Dreadmaster could have attacked and destroyed Necroid Shaman and he would have had to end his turn, but what we need to remember is that if you activate Doomlord's effect, you can't conduct your battle phase. And then it's sort of left ambiguous as to who would win in that situation. But this brings us to the point of the video. What if Jaden did win that duel? Would this mean that Neos and the Neospatians would never exist? They'd never come into the story and never get printed? That's probably what would happen, and then I guess the plot would still move along. I mean, Aster would in fact enroll a little earlier at Duel Academy, and all the other plots would have happened, like between the second and third duel between Aster and Jaden. Well, except maybe the one where Jaden's hallucinating and having flashbacks and gets helped out by Wheeler, but yeah, the whole little arc where he leaves Duel Academy, goes into space, gets the Neospatians, comes back, gets lost in the woods of Duel Academy, none of that would happen, but everything else would. All the other plots would play out the same way, only Jaden would be on the sidelines, watching the duels between Atticus and Alexis, Hasselberry and the Raw Yellow, the head of Raw Yellow. Um, then again, but what about the duel between Cyrus and Hasselberry? I actually literally just remembered this. Would that even happen? It's unknown. I I guess it still would if there was a plot where Jaden had to be elsewhere, but it's hard to say if that would still happen, and whether or not there'd still be a rivalry between Cyrus and Hasselberry. I guess there still would be, but then they'd have to be. They'd still have to work together in that tag team duel against. What were those two guys? The one who played Zaborg and the other who played Mobius. I feel like they would still put their differences aside and protect Jaden. So, that little rivalry would still take a bit longer to end. But ultimately, I guess it would mean that we never get to see Neos and the Neospatians and the fusions they make. Which would make Jaden's duels from that point onwards turn out a bit differently. They'd still have the same results, but where Jaden wins, except maybe in the final duel against Yugi. But yeah, it's hard to say for sure. Or maybe Neos would still come along anyway somehow and be Jaden's ace monster, but just not the Neospatians, and then there'd have to be some other fusions where Neos would merge with the other elemental heroes, and then we'd have more elemental hero fusions with specific names. I think that's the only way to go about it, really. And we'd be missing a contact fusion archetype. In fact, I was going to say there wouldn't be one where the materials return from the field to the deck, but then I remembered gladiator beasts do that. So, with that being said, that would end up being the first contact fusion archetype where the materials go back to the deck. Because obviously the first contact fusion archetype would be the VWXYZ monsters. Or rather, the XYZ ones, so that would still be the first one ever. And if Neos still doesn't come into existence, like both in the anime and in the actual game, then Flame Wingman still remains Jaden's ace monster. And it would mean that further down the line, Rainbow Neos probably wouldn't exist either. Or maybe we'd get a different fusion, have some sort of fusion between Flame Wingman and Rainbow Dragon, and that would be pretty difficult to go into, actually, considering that would need a fusion monster plus a Nomi. So what sort of fusion could it be? Who knows? Either way, it would be kind of difficult to bring out. Even more difficult than Rainbow Neos himself. And it's, I mean, I guess someone might try and make a deck based around it, but it would be kind of hard to do. I don't even know if I'd even attempt to. Either way, Flame Wingman remains Jaden's go-to monster instead of Neos in this timeline. And there'd have to be more support to really help out Flame Wingman and bring it out easier, or find a way to bring it back from the grave, ignoring summoning conditions. It would also mean that the likes of Armed Neos and Shining Neos Wingman wouldn't exist either, and neither would some of the cards in Power of the Elements. I guess that's basically it, really. Of course, I feel like if just Neos was printed, then literally nothing changes, or at least not that much anyway. But if it doesn't, then well, not too much would change either. Just the plot would move along a lot quickly in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and yeah, obviously Neos and the Neo-Spacian archetype wouldn't exist. And then I guess we wouldn't have any Neo-Spacian haters saying, oh, I wish Neo-Spacians never existed, they're garbage, Jaden never plays his original heroes anymore. It's absolute bullshit, but I already ranted about that in a top 10 video that I did on my channel. Actually, it was a top 12, which was the top 12 decks people hate me using. I could probably link it in the description, and yeah, that pretty much sums it up. I really want to think of some more Yu-Gi-Oh! GX what-ifs as well. Maybe even something for 5D's Zexal, Arc 5 and Reigns. Who knows? But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. Stay safe, and I'll see you later.